Hello and welcome to Homicide Hobbies. I'm Andy,
And I'm Claire.
and we're here to talk about some of the disturbing things that go on in the world, past and present. We feel like not knowing doesn't mean the crazy doesn't exist.
So we're going to scar you with the knowing.
Enjoy.
Okay, so just spoiler alert on this one, trigger warning, whatever you want to call it. This case is just fucking disgusting. So it has to do with mutilation, rape, and obviously some murder. That we're going to go through a satanic cult called the Ripper Crew that terrorized the streets of Chicago from 1981 to 1982. Now, there's 4 men that were responsible for the deaths that happened during that time period. It's estimated 17 plus women and at least 1 man. I say estimated because these sick fucks, not only did they lose count, but they didn't even remember the names of them. So they know at least 17 because those were confirmed.
Wow.
Yes. So, and not all the bodies were found. So it's just like of the bodies they found, and it's just one of those, again, disgusting. So we've got 2 brothers, Andrew and Thomas Kokoralis, Robin Getch, and Edward Spritzer. Now, the first body's gonna appear in like mid 1981. She's a 26-year-old mother of 2, Linda Sutton. She's abducted near Wrigley Field, and she's not found until about a week later. So about June 1st, 1981. Her body's mutilated, and they can't recognize her. Now, the reason she was found is the motel she was found behind. Someone reported a bad smell. Officers that were dispatched assumed it was going to be a dead deer, but instead they found Linda. Now, when they come across her, she's bound with expensive nickel-plated handcuffs, and she's so mutilated, she's unrecognizable. Initially, they thought she'd been there for a while because she was so badly decomposed. She was wearing a sweater, no pants, and her underwear were around her thighs. Now, she had $17 tucked in her sock, so because of that, they assumed she was a prostitute because that's how they carried their money. And whenever it's a prostitute that dies, it's difficult because they live a very dangerous life. So it was difficult to find leads on. But she's identified by her dental records. And then when the coroner comes back with his report that she hadn't been there as long as they initially thought, she was just so badly decomposed because the plethora of stab wounds she had allowed easier access for bugs to get in, so the decomposition rate was way faster. And then that's when they realized, because she was such a bloody, pulverized mess, they didn't notice that her breasts had been removed.
Wait, what?
Yes.
Like,
So, and the coroner said it was before death, which I know, I cringe. So there's
wait. You know how like guys, when they hear about something happening to a man's penis or
when I read
testicles,
it,
they cringe. That literally made me just like cross my arms over my chest, like, oh.
dude, when I was reading some of this, I felt my own boob. Like, don't worry, you're safe. Don't panic. But there's 3 reasons that they'll give that for people who like to remove body parts. It's either for arousal purposes of like just chopping it off in whatever way gets their jollies off, or it's some sort of symbolic or empowering act. And then the third is if they want a memento or something.
Ew.
Now, yes. So now, because she is a prostitute, they don't have leads to go on, so the case goes cold.
Wait, it's confirmed she's a prostitute, or they're still just assuming? Not that it matters. I'm just curious.
All the victims, it's just so these guys will say that they were trolling around looking for prostitutes, but there's only like, I don't want to get ahead of it, but there are some that are confirmed, but it's just put in there that they assumed she probably was.
Okay.
But I don't know if it's one of those, obviously, her being a victim, they don't want to think. If she was, it didn't, she didn't deserve to die, let alone that kind of a death anyhow.
Yeah, not at all. I was just
Yeah, but
curious.
I don't know. Um, so roughly a year later, May 1982, Lorianne Borowski is 21 years old. She leaves her house like she does every other day, and she lives close enough to her real estate office job that she walks. And when she's usually the first one there since she's so close, so it's her job to unlock the building and everything. Well, they take her by surprise and abduct her from the parking lot. Now, when people show up kind of trickling in to go to work, they find it weird that the building's not unlocked. And then they notice in the parking lot her keys are in the parking lot. Her shoes were scattered. There was like makeup and all sorts of other stuff that, probably fell out of her purse.
So you could tell something crazy
Yeah,
happened. Yeah.
yeah, definitely she battled. It'll be for 4 months before she's found, and they find her in the back of a cemetery, and she was sexually mutilated with an ice pick.
Oh, what the? Oh my. Ew.
I don't know entirely what the fuck that means. My imagination runs wild. Now this one gets kind of crazy because there's a detective that is on the case, and he says that the wounds she sustained were similar to Linda Sutton's. So they're kind of thinking it's the same person, but obviously it's a year later, so they don't know. Now the detectives go around trying to get witness info, and he's got an idea to do hypnotism to see if they can recall things that they otherwise don't realize that they know. And several of the witnesses describe a reddish van. So he gets thrilled with that, but then nothing else kind of, I mean, tips come in, but the case ends up going cold. So it's just like,
What was the time frame for this again? You said the 80s?
yep, 82.
Okay.
So May 29th, 1982, Schumacher is her name. Yeah, she's 30 years old. She disappears in Hanover Park. Now, she ends up having an argument with her brother in the car, decides she's going to get out and walk home, but then she's never found again, or like she's never heard from. And I don't know why 4 months seems to be when things occur, but 4 months from when she disappears, she's found in a field. She too is raped, has several wounds to her, and they describe her as being cut to ribbons. I'm not 100% sure what that actually means, but I know enough that that's not good. But they tossed her in a hole. So she's found in a field like that, just tossed in a hole. Now, June 13th, so about 2 weeks from when she goes missing, 23-year-old Angel York survives an attack on Chicago's north side in which she's assaulted, and her assailant forces her to mutilate her own breast and cut
What?
cut her nipple off with a knife. He had her cut her nipple off with a knife,
Nope.
right? So it was just like,
Nope. Did she say there was only one? Like,
well, no, she says assailants force her
okay.
to. So I just,
I'm sorry. You hand me a knife, I'm just gonna slash you. I'm
yeah,
like, at that point, if you're making me mutilate myself, I know the odds of me getting out of this are very slim, and therefore
yeah, I don't,
anybody that comes within reach is getting like,
yeah.
no. Okay. Anyway.
Now, I don't know if that kind of scares them that she lives because so when Lori was murdered, that was May 15th. Then when Schumacher goes missing, that was 2 weeks later. The next 2 weeks, this is Angel York, and that's when she survives. So there's a pause and everything until they attack Sandra Delaware, August 28th, 1982. Is as close as I could get to your birthday.
Oh, you bitch. Oh, is that how you found this case?
It isn't. I actually just looked at it and I was like, dang, that's pretty close. But
Uh, so for those that don't know, I was looking for a new case to research, so I looked up Claire's birthday, and I was gonna try to find somebody that was murdered or captured or anything having to do with her birthday. August 24th, 1978. Anybody find something? Let me know.
that's
No,
not
the
my
more fucked up
birthday.
and twisted, the better. What?
That's not my birthday.
I said August 24th, 1987.
It's recorded, so you can rewind that shit. But anywho, so August 28th, 1982, Sandra Delaware, 18.
Mhm.
Now she says that she was a teenage prostitute. So that's confirmed by her. But she's raped, stabbed, and strangled, and her body, I mean, no, not her body, but I guess her body, she's found under the Fullerton Avenue Bridge, like the northern side of the Chicago River, if that helps anybody in the Chicago area. To me, that's nothing. But no, she is so badly beat up and everything. She's at the hospital. She's not really awake. So while she's in the hospital, they find the body of Rose Beck Davis, a 30-year-old marketing executive,
Good God.
and she's found in Chicago's Gold Coast neighborhood. Now, she's raped, beaten with an axe, and fatally stabbed. Now, this is going to be some weird descriptions of her body, but they specifically said it in several articles that a pool of blood was under her anal cavity.
I
So
don't know what to do with that.
I don't either, but I know since some of the other people were ice picked, I don't know if that's a case of what was
You
going
make me
on
clench.
there. Yeah, that
You've
I was
got
like,
me like
mm.
I'm holding my boobs and now clenching my ass cheeks. So thank you for this, Claire.
No, her face is crushed in because she was beaten with that axe.
Jesus. Wait,
A
so did they use like the back of the axe or they
Yes,
used
so she was
so
like
they didn't even
bludgeoned
use the
with it.
blade?
Well, we'll get there. A
Oh,
black
okay.
sock was wrapped around her neck, and then she had deep cuts to her breasts and then small punctures on her abdomen. So the
What are they?
cuts to her breasts, what they would assume was like they used the axe on, but it just the small punctures to me says ice pick, which is why with the whole anal cavity pool of blood, I'm thinking ice pick. But mind you, we move on. So then in October 6th, 1982, now these two incidences are going to occur the same day. Now this is going to sound really weird when I tell you this information, but just
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
it. Rafael Tirado, 28, is fatally shot and his male companion wounded when they're standing at a phone booth. So they're just, and obviously it happened so fast, there's no real witnesses, nothing. Along that same day, Beverly Williams, that 18-year-old teenage prostitute, is interviewed by police. Now she was raped, she was sexually mutilated, and was left for dead on the railroad tracks where she was found. And fortunately, she does survive. Now, she'll just tell police that she was handcuffed and then forced to swallow pills. Then they took a piano wire, wrapped it around her left breast, and that's the last thing she recalls before waking up in the hospital. Now, I can tell
Oh,
you that they took that piano wire to several victims, but this is just now they at least know how they were removing the breasts. Was they would pull the piano wire at tighter, tighter, tighter until it cut through and no boob.
ugh. What do they
Now,
have against boobs?
now the right one for poor Beverly Williams was stabbed and mutilated, so it was basically just dangling. But that's how she wakes up in the hospital after that nightmare. Now, when they interview her, that's when that shooting takes place same day, just happens that way. Now, because of her giving that account, and then she's also able to give a description of the guy who did it, which was Getch. who she gives a description of. She also describes the red van, which I'm sure piqued the ears of detectives who did the hypnotism a year prior. So it's just like they're really kind of thrilled that things are starting to piece together. But she describes a red van that has a wooden divider separating the back, and that there's feathers and a roach clip on the rear
A
view
what?
mirror. I don't know,
Ew.
roach clip. So I wasn't sure. Now, this is my challengedness. I wasn't sure if that was like to get rid of roaches or if, like, we're talking, I know drugs wise, a roach from a rear view mirror. Now, to me, I wouldn't think it was drugs because who dangles that shit from a rear view mirror?
So I just Googled it and there is a roach clip with feathers.
Like it's to get rid of roaches?
No, it's like a decoration.
Huh. Okay. Well, so fortunately, she was able to provide a description of Getch and then the van. So later, they that day, October 20th, they spot a van that matches the description and they pull him over. Now, the driver of the van is Edward Spritzer, 21 years old. He's weirdly fidgety, but he tells the police his boss, Robin Getch, who's 28 years old, is the one who owns the van. Now, Getch is arrested for the attack on the 18-year-old girl who survived because that's who she was able to describe down to the van, and I would imagine there's evidence in the van of that. Now, scary part, because she lived, he's only like charged with assault and everything and rape. So he posts bond and walks out.
What the heck?
Yes.
Again, this goes back to the other case. I don't remember which one, but I feel like just because you don't succeed in killing someone does not mean you should get a lesser sentence, let alone bail.
Well, so he hasn't gone to jail or gone to court for it. It's just he's out waiting trial. But
But he shouldn't get bail.
I would think he would be a danger to humanity being out. But I suppose the whole innocent till proven guilty.
He still shouldn't. There's
I know
people
it.
that don't get bail because of what they've been arrested for.
Well, so the driver that was originally talked to because he was in the van, his name's Edward Spritzer or Eddie. They bring him in just because of how squirmy he was when he really shouldn't have been squirmy. I mean, it's his boss's van. You've got no reason to be squirrely about it. So
Yeah.
he immediately starts talking. He names the brothers Andrew or Andy and Thomas or Tommy Cocorales, who are 19. So they bring them in for questioning. Now, the three of these guys cannot stop talking. They give gruesome details. They tell where they put people. They even will say that their boss, he was like the ringleader. He had all these ideas. So the police are just kind of like miffed that it didn't really take much. But you figure they're 19 years old, so, or 19 and 21. So
Did they have a criminal record? Do you know?
I don't.
Yeah.
I should have looked that up. But anywho, so they confess to roughly 17 murders, but they will say that they kind of lost track because not all the bodies were found, and then they'll claim that they were under the influence of drugs and alcohol. Now, the 18-year-old survivor, now when they had her swallow a bunch of pills, I don't know what they had her swallow, so I don't know what they were doing. I don't know what kind of drugs that they were hopped up on. And I don't know if that was part of Getch's plan since he got these three guys to participate. But Getch is eventually convicted in 1983 for the attack on the 18-year-old survivor. He gets 120 years in jail with a parole date of 2042. The sick part of this, he's never convicted of any murder because there's not enough evidence. It's just he said, she said kind of thing.
Wow. When is he scheduled?
2042.
At least he'll be old.
Now Tommy Cocorales, he did get a life sentence. Now, his attorneys would claim that he's mentally deficient and had low intelligence. Doctors would say that he was easily swayed by anybody he thought was an authority figure. But he does go to jail. Spritzer, he's convicted and sentenced to death on one murder because it was only ones if they could tie them to things.
Right.
Um, so it's just like no one was charged with all 17. Now, Andrew Cocorales, he was actually executed by lethal injection and was the last death penalty in Illinois because in 2003, Governor George Ryan commutes all death row inmates to life sentences without parole.
Yeah.
Okay, so when they bring Spritzer into for questioning, the guy that was driving the van,
Right.
now, when he started telling stories about what happened, he would say that Robin Getch would remove the women's breasts to have sex with them.
Wait.
Yes, he would put his penis in the breast hole and have sex with it.
With the part
Why?
that's left on the body or with the part
Yes.
that they've removed?
Well, both, but why they're still alive. So, like that first lady who was found, that when they said it was removed while she was still alive. And that part of me, when I was reading all this, kind of makes sense why they couldn't really tell how it was removed, because depending on how long he was porking the hole, I would imagine he changes the shape of the wound and then it makes it harder to figure
The
out what
skin's
made it. Yeah. So
the
he would also do that to the stab wounds. So I don't know if it was because they're all taking turns raping these women, that if he was just in a hurry, that he would create his own hole to fuck.
Not to sound super gross, but it's gonna sound super gross. He must have had like a micro penis. Nothing against those that do have a micro, but if he's having sex with a ice pick hole,
Yeah. Well, I would imagine he had to swirl it. I don't know. But I cringed because these poor women, of just what they had to endure. Now,
you're really checking my gag. Like,
I tried to say early on, it's fucking disgusting. Because it would be even disgusting if they died and then he's just poking holes and fucking it. But no, they're basically raping these girls. And then because there are 3 dicks and not enough places to put them, he just carves up a spot to make his own. And
that's disgusting.
now mind you, he's never charged with a murder. So I was just like, this is so fucked up.
And
Now,
he's the one that's scheduled to be released
parole in 20 years. Hopefully he keels over. But so Spritzer will say, so after they did that, they would all take turns masturbating in the tit that was removed, and then they would eat it.
Ew, 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 ew. Oh.
Now, Spritzer.
No. No.
Hey.
Absolutely not. No. Oh my God. I'm going to throw up.
So I was just like, when I read it, I was like, I don't even understand how 4 men can go, yeah, let's do that. Now, this isn't like they did it one time and we're all
some weird shit.
up.
First of all, the cannibalism, the whole eating the breast thing, that's weird enough. But let's all masturbate into this cut off piece of flesh and then cook it and eat it?
Yes.
Like, you're right up there with my basting. What the hell? No.
So Spritzer says that Robin Getch was kind of like, he leaned towards the whole satanic ritual side of things. So he would save pieces of the breasts and place it in his little relic box, but they treated the breasts that they consumed similar to communion when you eat the bread, kind of ritualistic thing that they were doing.
So, like, putting it in each other's mouths?
Yes, that I was just like, but mind you, this is pieces of breast dripping with jizz that I'm like, now Spritzer will say at one time he counted 15 pieces of breast in that little relic box, so they did this at least 15 times is what he can recall, and I'm like, "Ugh."
God.
I feel like for me, you'd be like, "No, I'm good. I had a raisin earlier."
I
No,
mean, I wouldn't have been on board with any of what they did. This is just
no.
like, the icing on the cake, the jizz on the breast, whatever you wanna call it. Like, this is just
Yes, you just coined a new phrase. It's not icing on the cake anymore. It's jizz on the mutilated breast. Well, Spritzer will implicate both brothers Thomas and Edward Cocorales, saying that they joined in, they did the same, they participated. And then he would describe how Getch would enjoy watching the other men, whether it was when they were raping the women or beating them up or masturbating into their flap of tit. And he was fascinated by the fact that some ancient cultures would remove breasts and then save them and make them a tobacco pouch.
what?
Yeah. So when Getch is arrested for and charged and goes to jail for the attack on the 18-year-old survivor, several girlfriends, or ex-girlfriends, I should say, came forward and reported that they too were like had stories of when he would get all riled up, he'd want them to put needles in their breasts or cut their breasts with knives. One girl says that she told her that if she didn't cut off her nipple, someone else would do it.
I mean, again, hand me the knife and let's see what I do with it. I don't care if I have to chuck it at your face.
Yeah.
Like,
So now, when they're interviewing these three, part of the reason that they do believe them is just the level of detail they have confirms things that were on the body. Like Thomas Cocorales will discuss how they only removed the left breast of Lori, and they'll say they used a piano wire and tightened it until the breast came off. But then all four of them raped the hole where her breast was, then they stabbed her to death. So it's just that level of confession. They believed it because, again, that how would anyone else know it was only the left breast or that a breast was removed? Now that brings me over to now Thomas Cocorales. He was the one who the attorney would say that, he was just manipulated by the other three and going along because that's what they were doing. He was released from prison March 29th,
what?
2019.
What?
Now, he's living in an undisclosed location.
Is he a registered sex offender or anything?
I have no idea. I would imagine he's hiding because I can tell you that's such a unique name that if I run into a Cocorales anywhere, I'm gonna beat some fucking feet. Skibby on out of there. Now, weird note, Robin Getch's son also ends up in jail for murder in March 1999 for being the trigger man in a gang-related murder. I just thought that was an interesting tidbit because both father and son are going to be up for parole in the 2040s. So there's that. And then just a little side note, in almost every murder that the bodies were recovered in, there was some sort of breast mutilation, which is why they were able to piece some together. Because again, these four weren't paying attention to names. So eventually they don't remember the faces. They just remember vaguely where they picked them up, that they would drive around some days in the van and just look for whoever they could pick up. It was hard to find prostitutes all the time, so they would just grab somebody if they were easy pickings. And now during this time in Chicago, they terrified people just because of the range of ages and race and everything. There was no profile to which they were hunting. And then
Nice.
also area-wise was so erratic, there was no area to avoid. Sometimes happened in good neighborhoods, and it just was one of those, everybody was terrified because it could be anyone who's next. That there's one prostitute that survived. the one who they had her remove her nipple, that she said the first thing that signaled to her that something was off is they offered to pay her more money. And she was just like, that's not usually how it works. So that was what led her to be on guard and I
You
guess
think?
essentially saved her life. Now, the other thing, now Eddie, Tommy, and Andrew, they have all three confessed their involvement and level and what they did with anything that they recall. Because again, some of them will do like I don't remember. I was either high or drunk. I don't remember. Now Getch has never claimed he did any of it. He said it's disgusting, and he has no idea why that that they would say that, and it was definitely not his idea.
Hey, on a side note,
Uh-huh.
I just looked up your Tommy Cocorales.
Cockroach. Uh-huh.
He is currently in living on New York Street in Aurora, Illinois.
Not going there. Or Indiana. Now,
Yeah,
uh,
Indiana's got some wild stuff.
now when they searched Getch's home, they find the gun that was used in the phone booth shooting. That's how this is all tied together. Now,
Did
personally, just reading the little bits that I have, I don't understand if they found that shit in his house. I mean, how he couldn't have been connected because that guy died, and then the other one was wounded. But that was his
well,
gun that did it.
they never asked him about it? I mean, I'm sure they did, but
To me, it seems weird that where was could they not find the breast relic box? Like, where was that? I would imagine if you can find somebody with pieces of tit in their house, that's kinda like the whole, "Yep, sorry, guy, you're going away," or, "Fuck, how did only one of these guys get put to death?"
I don't I don't know how anybody's even out.
No. Now, this is gonna be a real doozy, and
Oh God.
Robin Getch used to work for John Wayne Gacy.
What?
I know, it's a mic drop moment, save that one for the end.
What the heck?
Yeah. So I was just kinda like, "Whoop."
Huh. I
It's
did not.
interesting how crazy attracts crazy, I guess. But could you imagine if those 2 were best buddies and were doing their shit together?
No. Holy shit. My mind is blown right now. Thank you, Claire.
I know.
I feel slightly nauseous. My boobs are sore. I'm
Hey,
gonna
when
have a cramp in my ass cheek from clenching my butt.
well, I
And
have
now
got
my
to
mind
say
is blown. Thank
yeah.
you.
Well, I've gotta say, when it was the ice pick in the rectum kinda potential thing, again, they didn't say that, they just it was weird how they described that there was a pool of blood in her anal cavity. So, I
Yeah.
don't know what went there, but I thought
Something
it's
that
bad
shouldn't have.
enough. Yeah, I think it's bad enough to take a piano wire to somebody's boob while they're alive to remove their boob. I can't even imagine the amount of pain that would be, but then to be alive while they start fucking that hole, I don't know.
Yeah.
Uh, ugh. But yeah, 17 of those.
So I wonder if they were inspired by Gacy.
That's where I was curious. Now, Robin Getch, he was like a in and out of employment as a carpenter. So that was what the need for the van was. And that's where I would imagine the three boys that he had help him were like independent contractors in the
Hmm.
sense of just moving things or sanding some stuff. But an excuse to have a van, I suppose.
Hmm.
Now, the authorities did dub them the Ripper Crew as a nod to Jack the Ripper, in case you didn't get the correlation.
Yes, I got it. Probably connected for all kinds of reasons.
What I thought was kind of crazy, well, I thought several things with this was crazy, but
was gonna say,
that
which one thing did you find crazy, Claire?
if they wouldn't have screwed up and not killed the two survivors, that they would have gone for a very long time. And then it's just scary to know that they didn't even find all the ones that they did it to, because when they were finding people who would otherwise disappear without a trace, no one's looking for them kind of scenario,
Yeah.
it is scary. I did think it was pretty crazy. I've never heard of a detective hypnotizing potential witnesses to see if they
Yeah, that's
remember
weird.
anything subconsciously. I'd like to know how they pitched that.
Well, you would think, maybe not back then, but you would think that because you're more susceptible to information being put in, that
Yeah.
like any testimony they could give would be considered tainted and therefore thrown out.
Well, that's where I figure, like, with the description of the van that they got, I thought it was interesting, but obviously it was just something that everybody recalled, but they can't use that to place anybody. But to me, I also don't understand. Now, I know this is in the throes of DNA evidence and everything, but I don't understand. This sounds very messy. So, how is there no DNA to connect anybody? Like, they fucked a tit hole.
Did they
Like,
wear a condom? Like they don't seem like the type that would have cared about that.
yeah, and several people, there's no like finger, well, I guess they were all bound, so fingernail scraping, but they like, the level of who bought the handcuffs. I feel like it was Get, since he was like the one who had all of the ideas. Way to go for Beverly Williams for being able to describe him and the van, because that's the reason they were able to pull him over,
Yeah.
or pull the
Hell of a
van over
witness.
rather. Yeah, that's all I got.
You sufficiently made me sick to my stomach, so thank you. I have to keep an eye on you. You did warn me, and I
Yeah.
thought that I was prepared. I was not. I feel like we even talked about this a couple weeks ago.
We did, and it took me a while to find it. And then I was so excited to find it, and then I didn't want to tell Dave last night that I was like, "Yes!" And then if I would have told him that I finally found the case that I couldn't recall the people's names in, but it was so horrifying when I had heard about it then, that it was just like, because there's not a lot of people who take off a tit and then fuck the whole of it. And then I remember thinking when I heard that, it was just like, how the heck do you get several people on board with that? I mean, I get the people who are Lone Ranger doing their weird shit, but how do you convince three people that this is a good idea? I guess you get them hopped up on drugs and alcohol.
I I don't do drugs. I occasionally drink, but I still don't think I could be drunk enough to find that a good idea.
No, I feel like
Like
the
I
all.
compare that to the equivalent of cutting off a testicle or a penis and
So
put
that'll be the next thing I'll tell Dave. Just so you know, I love you so much. I would not remove any of your body parts before or after death.
you can have that one. I'm not going to say that to Jason because I think he's still scarred on the whole share panties thing.
Yeah. Well, the amount
By the
of
way,
just silent blinking that goes on when I'll just randomly say some weird shit, it just, I don't know. Keep him guessing. So it's entertaining.
yeah, is it? Or is it just slightly horrifying and makes him sleep with just a little bit less deep sleep?
I think it's comforting to him that he's so much bigger than me. It's probably why he sleeps perfectly sound. You're like, she's just crazy. And then pets my head. She's so
I'm going
calm
to
when
stay on
she's
her good side.
sleeping. Yeah, like,
He's like, I'm going to keep you happy, Claire.
occasionally
Be
he
a good
does.
girl.
Occasionally he does remind me of a deer in headlights. Just don't make sudden movements. Just blink,
Well,
darty eyes a little bit.
oh
Oh,
gosh.
no shit.
Wow. It's going to
But
be fun when we're together.
yeah,
Our husbands are going to be mentally scarred, but at least they'll have each
probably
other.
so. But yeah, so I haven't told him That's what I was excited about the case, because I do remember telling you a while back, and then I was so irritated that I couldn't remember the names of the people. But again, the crime stuck out because we first heard it on TV, and I remember being in the kitchen and be like, "Wait, what did they just say? They removed a breast and did what? And then stabbed her to death? She was alive?
Yes,
What?"
I remember you calling me and telling me that, and I was like,
That's
"Ew,
because it's
what?"
startling information. Now, I can tell you the little nugget of beating off into it all together and then eating it was
Yeah, you
not a
saved that one.
now that one was a discovery recently. They did not say that on TV. I can understand why they kept it as clean as they could, but
Yeah, I was gonna say, I
dis
can't imagine why they didn't air that one. That's just
that's disgusting.
no, no.
And we're talking 4 men's worth. That's a lot. I guess it was the special sauce.
So you know how I'm probably gonna end up editing this out
Yeah, probably
because
so.
it's gonna make my no, what I'm about to say. So these men all seem to have a pattern of man making sure get it up back to back. Like, how the hell are you able to rape her, cut off a boob, fuck the holes,
Yeah,
and then
then
masturbate into a tit?
yeah.
Like, assuming they're finishing all these times, like that's a lot of back to back.
Now, see, I might have rushed this one because I was honestly so fucking excited to tell it to you
It's so
that I was
twisted.
just like, that's why I didn't really research now the Corrales brothers, how they were raised, if Spritzer has any issues in his closet or prior arrests, Robin Getch. I think it would be interesting to know what did him and Gainey work together for?
Oh, Gacy.
Oh,
Yeah.
Gacy, yeah. I was reading my other notes.
Yeah. No, that
But
would
then
be
it was the
interesting.
horrifying thought of if those 2 had gotten, together, because really, again, if they wouldn't have left a survivor, they would have kept on doing what they were doing. I just also thought it was weird that they decided to do a fatal shooting of the people at the phone
Yeah,
booth.
that's really random.
I don't know if it was like a they're bored, high, and drunk, and just it was a convenience thing, but then
Let's go shoot stuff.
I also didn't know if it was a case of I've never gone shopping for a prostitute, but they're generally on a corner near a phone booth kind of scenario. Is it possible he was a cross dresser and that's what led to the shooting?
Interesting.
You know, like they pull over and then they're like, whoa. I don't know that that's a thing, but that's what I was just like, huh. The fact that they
Was
didn't, I mean, they just shot and then wounded the male companion. So I
interesting.
don't know. I mean, I feel like it could also have been like these 2 are out and about. Again, it seemed like it was a
Wrong place.
convenience
It could, yeah,
thing,
it could be a wrong place, wrong time. It could
and
be
then
your cross-dressing theory.
so I also didn't know if it's possible since it was Getch's gun, if it was his son, because his son goes to jail several years later for being the shooter in a gang-related murder, so it's possible he took dad's gun and shot him, and then dad
How old would his son have been during the shooting, do you
mm,
know?
I can look it up. But that's what popped in my mind of he's not gonna rat out his son.
So his son was 18 years old in
Are you looking it up?
1999. So his son was 18 in 1999.
No,
When
then it
was
wasn't him. 82.
oh,
That'd be a
unless he
little
shot from the testicles.
I said 82.
I know. He would have still been swimming in his dad's nutsack. Oh
He
no.
would have been 10 years old.
Oh yeah. I was thinking he was born in it. Okay. I'm still mentally scarred here. Leave me
Which, by the
alone.
way, when you rewind the shit, you say 78. And I was like, that's not my birthday. And they were like,
Did I really?
yes, it is. I said 87. I'm like, yeah, so this is recorded and you can rewind that.
Well, it's your fault because you just mind fucked me and I was not mentally prepared for it. You know, since you already gave me like a quick briefing on this weeks ago, you could have just dropped that little tidbit when you said, "Hey, don't be eating anything. This is going to be a disgusting one."
It really is.
You
And
could have just said, "This is the tit chopping and whole fucking one,"
no,
and I
because
would
I
have been
so
mentally
wanted.
prepared, but I was not. I
I
was definitely not. I would not have eaten right before this. I would not have fully caffeinated myself for this. I would have, like, fasted for this shit because ew,
Ew. Yeah,
thank you.
I
Thank you.
I know. And actually, I stumbled on it really on accident because so when I was just looking for shit, and then I saw that the Ripper crew is one of the most, like, really in terms of mutilation, they're right at the top with the things that they came up with and did to people. So I was
Yeah.
like, I'm just going to do this one. And then when I was reading, I was like, oh, this is it. This is the
You're like,
fucking
"Oh, I thought this was
nastiest.
just this was just gonna be general mutilation, nothing special." And then
Which
you're
in
like, "Oh, yay."
Yeah, which in the scheme of things, if I am going to go out being raped and murdered, I'll definitely take the classic rape over a tit rape
Yeah, me too.
or an ice pick hole to the abdomen thing. Because personally, I feel like they did a tiny hole so that there was more friction kind of scenario and then
Oh,
stretched
sure.
that shit out. And I can't imagine the tearing of flesh because they're having sex with it.
I don't know how she didn't pass out from the pain.
I hope that she was passed out because I also don't understand when they would go to, like, hotels and do this. Now, mind
How
you,
nobody heard.
yes, how was that not a great deal of fucking noise? But then the chicks that survived, they were given a bunch of pills, so it's possible they weren't conscious.
God, I hope they weren't.
I hope the same. So it just like I
But
don't
then
know.
again, the one chick that survived was told to chop off her own nipple. So a certain amount of this torture they weren't alive for,
Well, yeah, a
or
certain
like
amount
conscious
because,
for.
like, the other girl, she was handcuffed, forced to swallow pills, and then she recalls them putting the wire around her boob and started pulling, and then that's when she passed out. So, I mean, I guess that's to your whole that enough pain, you pass out, but then she wakes up in the hospital. Now, I don't know if they thought she was dead and that's when they chunked her on the railroad tracks, but if they didn't think she was dead, they're kind of stupid, but gratefully so. But that's when they just pitched her out on some railroad tracks, which is also fortunate enough that somebody found her before a train came.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought about that one when you said on the train tracks. I was like, ooh.
Yeah. Now, I personally thought it was weird in between the first one that the body they find and then the second one is like a year and some change later. I think that's only because that's how long it took for another body to pop up. Because when I was also researching it, the second girl that they find, it takes 4 months to find her body. They had already looked in that cemetery, but it basically wasn't until there was a smell that they found her. So they'd already been near her body when they were looking. Which was
And
really sad because her parents were like, they were all, like, looking for clues of where she could be, and they walked through the cemetery, and her mom said that she would go through when they would be looking for her and carry a white sheet so that they could put it over her body if that's how they found her.
that's sad.
It was really sad because she said for 4 months, they really hoped that somebody was just holding her hostage and that she'd eventually come back to them, and then to learn about just the level of brutality that occurred. I don't see how they all don't get killed, but I say that, but I also understand they got to go with the evidence that they have. But I feel like there's got to be so much evidence. I
I
don't
mean, these guys
understand.
all rolled over real quick. I'm surprised they didn't take turns pointing the finger at each other. At least get them life in prison, but
Yeah,
you could have gotten a couple of them on death row. I mean, bare minimum.
yeah.
Yeah. Ugh.
So one's dead, one's out, one's life without parole, and then the other one, the leader of it all, 2044 or 2042, and then his son is 2044 for their parole hearing. I just hope that, you know how they'll open up cases that aren't solved and do DNA and stuff like that. I hope that that's the case with several of these ladies that they are able to link them to Robin Getch, and then he doesn't get out. Better yet, I think it'd be fan-fucking-tastic if they decide to bring the death penalty back because he's disgusting.
Yeah, that would be amazing because I don't think they deserve to be walking free. The shit they did is disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting and despicable and cruel. And
Yeah.
I don't understand how the leader of the pack is not, like, you've got people that go to jail for like
Less.
instigating stuff, you know, and not
Yeah.
actually participating, but they like hire like a hitman or whatever. They still go to jail for those crimes. I don't understand how they couldn't rope him, you know what I mean? Because he was an active participant slash the leader. Like, uh,
Now, I'm not suggesting Beverly Williams do this, but I would imagine when he gets his parole hearing, yeah, I would just swan on in there because you figure one tit's off, one tit was mutilated. They can't look normal. I'd just walk
no.
in there, flash the judge, and be like, that guy did this. Don't let him go.
And can I just say that I really hope a plastic surgeon
Yeah,
helped her
volunteered
out?
their time.
Yeah.
I would hope so because it's just, but I don't know. I get got 120 years for the attack on her, which is fantastic.
Not if
But
he's up for parole anytime in the near future. I don't understand why they do that, by the way.
I don't either. What's a
Like,
hundred? It makes it a joke of a sentence for 120 years. Well, it'd be 60 years. Mm, he'd be 88. I
you know what?
still say though, but he was the ringleader of the other three. So just it's kind of like the Charlie Manson level of disgustingness.
Right.
So it's not a case of he's 88, what can he do? He wasn't the only one doing stuff.
Yeah, he's just encouraging.
And then scary thought of if he does make it out and then his son won't be that old. He might pass along some ideas. I don't know. But it's a scary thought. I don't believe he needs to breathe air.
No, I don't think he deserves to breathe air.
And my heart seriously goes out to all the families who had to hear how their babies went. It's
Or
just
identify them.
disgusting. Yes. Oh, but that's where I was saying. So when between the time between those first two, I feel like they're just victims that weren't found. I don't
Yeah.
feel like they took a break for a year. I think they were just pitching them places. And then I also did not know. I mean, it made sense. Like that when I was telling you the girl that was found, she was only a couple days of being dead, but it was because all the puncture wounds and the bugs getting in there. Now, they say that for a regular old dead body, that the bugs enter through like the mouth or the eyes, it's just stuff, orifices. But because
Hmm.
there were so many holes, that's what expedited that process. So I don't know if assuming all the other victims were the same way, if they took them out far enough, or say on the train tracks enough where they got pulverized to nobody knew that there was a person there kind of scenario. That
Yeah.
this is also some of it's in the summer, and even though I mean it's not terribly hot, but heat's gonna make things happen faster too.
Plus animals.
Yeah. So it's just like that's and I it's disgusting to me. They don't even know who their victims were. That's so inhumane of not even giving a shit who they were. Yeah.
I feel like they crossed the line. They crossed off the give a shit meter a long time ago.
I get it, but I mean, not even they weren't even keeping notches. Like, not even, oh yeah, today is day 30. It's just, it's a lot. It's
You
all.
made me stress yawn.
But like when they were finding bodies, they were like 2 weeks apart. So I can understand where the police department was way overwhelmed too, because it's just like bodies all over the place. And obviously, I can't imagine these are the only bodies that are popping up either, and which ones are connected to what. And they had their calling card as all the whole breast mutilation.
Yeah.
I have to feel my left tit again just to confirm it's still there. It didn't fall off because of the story.
I've been sitting here clutching mine. Not like in a weird way, just
Yeah, not rubbing myself if that's like. No. Well, I guess I am, but not in an erotic kind of way, but as a sympathy pain rub. This conversation's taking a weird turn. I'm gonna hang up and call you.
Oh god. All right. That's all we've got, huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you sure? Because you said that's all you got, and then
Several times I prattled on. That's all I got, Andrea.
we hope you enjoyed today's episode of Homicide Hobbies. If we made you laugh, if we made you cry, or if we mind fucked you for the day, then we thank you for listening. Please write a review on whatever you're listening to us on. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your coworkers. We're freaking awesome. And join us next week for another episode of Homicide Hobbies. I'm Andy.
And I'm Claire.
That's all we've got.